Alex, thank you so much for speaking with me today, a fellow investor and someone that has been very inspirational in my journey. I've looked at your videos, I've joined your meetups, and I just want to thank you so much for being here and giving me the opportunity to kind of pick your brain.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you, and we can talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything.
Yeah.
To invest in real estate.
So, where are you today? You're in a really cool office, but I know you're all over the place. So, tell me where your destination is now.
Currently I'm in Mexico in Guadalajara, so I do spend some time here. I have a team here, and then also have a lot of family. So love the food, love the culture, and also the cost of living is much better.
Yeah, I bet. So are you Mexican? I don't know if we've gone through that.
Both my parents are Mexican. I was born in San Diego, so the typical immigrant Mexican family that
Yeah.
immigrated to LA, and yeah, so definitely have all those experiences of growing up in a Mexican household.
Yeah. And I assume being in Mexico, you feel like you're home and the food is amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want to live there? But I bet that experience has been very fulfilling for you.
It has. I spent time here when I was younger, growing up on a regular basis. We'd visit. My mom has a huge family, as a lot of Mexicans I can relate to.
Yeah.
And so I always felt like it was home, but it wasn't until I started coming here as an adult and seeing kind of more of the city,
Yeah.
more of everything that wasn't so cultured like it is with your family, or just
Hmm.
family. You're only gonna go to the tia's house and then the tio's house and all
Yeah.
that. But coming here and traveling as an adult, and also, frankly, when I was coming here, I was already kind of adult, so had some success, and also was single, and so I just tended to find that all those that combination was really cool.
Yeah, I bet. So, can you share about your upbringing and how it influenced your journey into real estate investing?
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs of Southern California. It wasn't like we were rich or anything, but it wasn't like the absolute ghetto either. So, we grew up living in apartments. My parents, my dad worked at restaurants. My mom worked as a housekeeper. So it doesn't get any more like typical than that. And just watch my mom and dad work hard every day. Started grinding pretty early. And then right when I got out of high school, I got into the banking industry. So
Mm.
just kind of learned just the values of hard work, dedication, and all the things that the American dream is about.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was very helpful. I feel like I was blessed to be bilingual, also be living in LA, where I mean there's a lot of opportunities, but
Yeah.
you have to really be ready to work for them, because it truly is the land of like haves and have nots, and you look around
Hmm.
and see all the wealth, but then also there's a lot of different
Yeah.
too.
Were there any experiences in your childhood that shaped your views on money and financial success?
Yeah, I think one big one that stands out is that some of my friends, they had houses, and we grew up living in apartments. So I didn't kind of experience it. And I always wondered, like, how I see my parents work hard. How come we don't have?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think this, my parents just wanted to kind of give us what they didn't have, and that was like kind of toys. And I think my parents had racked up some credit card debt, and they just kind of we didn't end up buying a house or anything like that, and we lived in apartments. And I that kind of got me to wonder, like, why, what are these people that have these big houses,
Yeah.
what are they doing differently than what my family is doing? And I definitely say that was one of the seeds that was planted early on, of like, hey,
So, what resources or education helped you develop your financial literacy, especially in the fields of investing that's complex and you have to analyze all types of deals?
great question. The work experience that I got pretty early on, I think, helped. Where once I got out of high school, my older brother was working for a major bank at the time in the kind of operations supervisor role, and he helped give me a bank teller position. I think it was just 18, right out of high school. I went to college for a semester, but it just didn't hit for me. I didn't like it. Never been
Hmm.
a huge fan of just like that kind of education. And so it didn't really resonate with me. And so I got a job working at the bank at 18 years old. I think from 18 to 22, it's
Hmm.
23. I was working for the bank, and just you just learn a lot by working in a financial institution because you get to see how money moves, how checking savings accounts work, how different kinds of bank accounts work. And so that was, I would say, my first major education into financial literacy.
Yeah, you're right. What initially drew you to real estate investing as a vehicle? How did your journey start? Why did you decide this is the route I want to go?
I got my real estate license to sell real estate. And then I started to see that the majority of the transactions that I was working on were these kind of investor deals where, they were short sales or people in foreclosure, things like that. And I noticed that there was a big difference between what I was making as a realtor and working on this transaction for many months and what the actual investor was making. And I thought that there was something there that I had to explore more of. But then it wasn't until I was really kind of fed up where I was at about 2016, 17, where I was like, well, I really want to be a real estate investor. How do I get into this business? I have some valuable skills of sales and mortgage experience and banking experience and all this other stuff. How can I just go work for a real estate investor and then provide some value there? And that's basically what my entry point was.
Is that how you decided to stick with flipping? There's so many different strategies, and I think as people get into real estate investing, we have no idea what we should do. Because like you said on these podcasts, you hear of people, getting successful off of multifamilies, buying and holding, midterm rentals, Airbnb arbitrage, flipping. So how did you decide this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this instead of everything else.
Yeah, so great question because there is a lot of strategies and you can get caught
Yeah.
up in all that and not do anything. And so I think that one made flipping real estate made the most sense for me. And I
Mhm.
just, it just seemed like it resonated the most with that. Like I wasn't as excited about wholesaling because I wasn't going to actually own the properties. And my goal was always let me fix and flip to make money. But then once I'm making more money, I'll be able to possibly keep some of the ones. The skill set I was learning from the first investor was really buying properties at a deep discount because
Mhm.
he had this, I guess, buying criteria. He had this way of like looking at deals. Like he wanted to make a minimum of $100,000 profit, or he didn't really even want to touch it. That
Mm.
also enabled that you keep the properties. And obviously, I'm talking about Southern California, so like you're buying houses for 4, 5, 6, 700,000
Yeah.
dollars. You don't want to buy that size or that type of property at that price to make $25,000. Now, if you're buying a property in the Midwest for 100,000, 200,000, maybe you're gonna make less. So that was his way of looking at it, and I resonated with that because I also didn't want to just get into flipping just to make like $10,000, $20,000 a deal.
Yeah.
I wanted to make $50,000, $100,000 a deal. That was really kind of my goal too, and it just seemed to all kind of make sense for that. And so it was like let's do flipping and let's keep the best ones, and then let's flip enough properties to be able to keep those ones that we feel are the best ones.
How did you determine to, I guess, purchase properties in that specific market? So was it only California at that time? Because California is so expensive. Um, I remember when I was looking into investing, I was like, there's no way I can afford Cali. There's no way I can afford New York. So how were you able to do that?
Well, I mean, once I worked for those two investment companies for that 2.5 years in the beginning, um, that it kind of helped me break a lot of limiting beliefs on that too. Because
Mm,
I just always wanted to start my own backyard. I just thought, well, I grew up in LA. I know a lot of different neighborhoods. I did have some experience with, having done the mortgage business. And so I had done home loans for clients in different parts of the areas. I had done, larger loan amounts. I'd done smaller loan amounts. And so I did have that experience. And so I never really looked at it as that daunting to me or hey, I have to go to another state. But that was
mm.
also based on my experience. So someone else, maybe I've owned properties in 5 states, but I've made the most money in Southern California. So
Can you share a particular deal that you impressed yourself with that deal? Your most impressive, I guess, what you find to be that was a really, really great deal, pat on the back type of deal.
uh, yeah, yeah. So let me think about it because I mean, I've worked on 140 deals, so
Yeah.
there's some that stand out. Uh, I think one of them that stands out is one of the first deals that I kind of did. a little bit of a collaboration with one of my Instagram followers. I had started sharing that I was looking at all these properties, and this guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been cold calling. I see that you flip real estate, and I want to see if maybe you could kind of mentor me and help me out a little bit and get started." And mind you, it was not like I was that advanced yet. I was just leaving the second company I was working for, and
Mhm.
so he calls me up, and then since he had some experience that I was looking to also kind of collaborate with, he was doing some Amazon stuff or some kind of drop shipping stuff, and so okay, cool. Why don't I teach you some stuff about what I've learned on the real estate investment side, and then you teach me some stuff on that.
You mentioned partnering up with another investor for capital. Have you ever had obstacles with funding or access to capital, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so at the beginning, it's always a problem because you don't have a proven track record. You don't really
Right.
know that people with money. You've never actually done it yourself. So yeah, so I think at the beginning the problem was more like who do I ask? But read some books on it, listened to some podcasts on it, and on that particular deal, I just reached out to a couple of people that had been following me on social media that had expressed some interest maybe of doing some business together, and then I just pitched a deal and say, hey, I have this really lucrative deal, and it's just much easier once you do have something kind of under contract. If you go to a bunch of people and ask them for money but then you don't really have any opportunities for them, then
Yeah.
I think it becomes much harder. But in this case, I was already coming with like something contract in hand. I had some experience already having worked and helped these other investors acquire deals. And so I just offered a 50% equity and said, hey, if you help me fund this deal, then I will bring you the deal and we can split the profit 50.
Yeah.
Especially in the last 2 years, I've had situations come up with capital partners where properties were they were delayed. And so I think you have to also be able to set expectations on that front. And I definitely made mistakes there where I was maybe a little too optimistic. Hey, we're gonna be able to flip this property in this time frame, and then people get antsy, people get kind of hostile, like, hey, I want my money back, and it's like, well, I
Yeah.
most of the time I have money in these deals too, and I'm just like, I want my money back too, but like this is just the way the investing goes. So I think you really have to be able to set expectations, like, hey, this thing might take a year. Our target is 6 months, but we have to like say, hey, this might take a year because there's unexpected things that are possibly going to come up, even though we do everything we can to avoid that.
We chatted a little bit about you having major success, but also having some struggles in between the years of investing. I feel like you said the past few years have been somewhat of a struggle. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so from the beginning, 2017, 18, and part of 19, I was working for other investors, helping them make a ton of money, learning the ropes. And then 19, 20, 21, part of 22, we were crushing it. We were buying
Hmm.
20 plus properties. One of the years we made $1 million, and then after they changed interest rates so quickly in 2022, 2023,
Yeah.
and really 2024. So I made a lot of money, and then the last couple of years, I pretty much not made any money or lost money. So it's just been kind of a survival in the last couple of years where since like, okay, well, I'm not going to make the same amount of money, but let's just stay in business. We're going to flip fewer properties. We're going to be a lot more kind of strategic on the type of properties we do buy, because we learned on, like, say for example, the Joshua trees and some of those more outlying areas, they were kind of outside our buy box, our purchase criteria. And so because capital was much more available, we went outside of kind of our core capacity, what we do best, we'll say. And so I learned that valuable lesson. Like, hey, whenever I go outside this type of property, I usually don't do well. Also, in that time, I bought an apartment building in Phoenix. Things were going great, and then literally everything that could go wrong has gone wrong with that project. And so I've lost, I think, $600,000 or $700,000 on that project alone myself, and that's a significant amount of my net worth, because I invested into a bigger project, and then that project didn't go according to plan, and then I couldn't just back out of the deal like I could on a house that, oh, hey, you know what, let me just sell this house and lose 20,000. I've done that before. That's fine. I could do that, but that wasn't an option with this project. And so I think the biggest learning lesson I have is just the deals that you don't do are the best ones because you're better off having more cash on hand. You're better off
Mhm.
sticking to what you do best. You're better off, holding, for a much better deal overall, and then not getting into things that you're not really well versed in, or partnering with people that are really well versed in that. And so when I bought that apartment building, my partner and I that had at the time, he was supposed to kind of run that project, and then we ended up splitting, ways not too long after that project
Mhm.
all happened.
Yeah.
So I had to run a project that I really wasn't that familiar with,
Yeah.
multifamily, the leasing units up, the operations behind it. And so I don't want to paint a picture of like, hey, I'm a super successful investor. Yes, I've had a lot of success, but I've also had a lot of failures in the last couple of years and learned a lot from those. I didn't know what I didn't know. Like that thing was going to need a lot more capital constantly, more than I expected, and a lot more bandwidth. And I didn't really end up. I didn't end up getting either of those. I didn't get more bandwidth from the team. I had less team members to work with, and I also ended up getting a lot less capital to work with in that time frame too. So all those kind of factors worked against me. And then because we had less capital, we also made a lot less money and delayed some of the projects that were going to make money in LA. So just if I could go back, it's just like not bite off more than you can chew is probably another big lesson of that.
Because I know we always hear about all these success stories on different podcasts, and we don't really get to hear about our everyday life struggles and the debt and the losses. And some people, taking a loss is a really big hit. So it's important to talk about that too. So thank you.
Yeah,
Um, as a Hispanic investor, what unique challenges or advantages have you encountered in the real estate industry?
hmm. I think on the advantages, let's say just that you could talk to more people. So what you would when you're dealing with potential property owners that are Spanish speaking,
Hmm.
also be helpful to be able to speak their language and understand culturally where they're coming from and some of those
Yeah.
things to help you connect with people on that. Also,
Yeah.
I think understanding and talking to the construction crews is also helpful with that, particularly if you're bilingual and you speak
Hmm.
well. I think on the disadvantages, I don't really think of disadvantages that much, but I think the obvious one is just that hey, this field is dominated by a lot more people that are Caucasian, and
Yeah.
there's like that thing of the second company I worked for, all the owners were they were white, and part of the reason I left working for them was because it didn't seem like they ever were going to let me be in a more of a managerial
Mm.
supervisor type of position, even though I felt I had earned it. I helped them make over $1 million and helped them buy over 50 houses in a year and a half, not even a long time. And I wanted more to help the company grow more and to be more involved in some decision making. And because I was Hispanic, they didn't. I know that was definitely a factor because all their other people that they had in those positions were not necessarily more competent, but they were related to them or they were also white, and so I think you're going to come across that at times. But I really don't look at that. Never looked at as okay, I'm Hispanic, that's going to be a huge disadvantage because that's also a limiting belief and a mindset thing.
Mhm. Your lifestyle now, as you've achieved financial independence, what are some lifestyle changes? You live in Mexico, which seems dreamy, but you've also lived in Hawaii. Like, that's happened because of real estate, I assume. And I'm also interested in knowing, do you use virtual assistants in Mexico? Like, how do you manage your properties in California while being in Mexico?
Yeah, so thank you. Another great question. So, and then I want to also kind of be real about that too. Is that at a certain point I had a certain net worth, we'll say, and then the last couple of years that number has kind of changed a lot. So I wouldn't say I'm quite financially dependent now, although
Yeah.
like I could get back there, because I've done it already once. But
That's
I
probably the realest thing anyone could ever say. So thank you.
I don't want to stretch the truth either, just like, okay,
Yeah,
cool. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
was a multimillionaire and then now like I'm not a multimillionaire, but
Yeah.
I'm certainly not broke. I'm certainly not broke. But it doesn't feel exactly the same. But we'll keep
Yeah,
things 100 right here, right?
yeah.
No. But so yeah, so I have made decisions about my lifestyle based on kind of what I've noticed that makes me the most productive, happiest, put me around the places I want to be at. So rather than be the person that like want to go buy fancy stuff such as like
Yeah.
cars, watches, certain kind of name brands and clothes and all that. I've because if you recall in my story, I worked in the mortgage business, and in that
Mm-hmm.
I also did do that stuff where I was like, oh, I was making more money, and then I started, buying those things and thinking that those things were going to make me happy, or that could show off, my success or whatever. Well, in the last like 3 4 years, where I've been traveling more and kind of living more in Hawaii and in Mexico than in LA, it was because Hawaii has, it's paradise. Well, who doesn't want to be living in Hawaii?
Yeah.
I moved there during the pandemic, and so it was like, oh, I got an opportunity, and then once I moved there, my mentor helped me to be able to build more of a system and more processes and a team that allow me to focus on my strengths and not have to physically be in LA. And it's really no difference of someone say being in LA and then they're investing in the Midwest and they're investing in Texas. You do have to find competent, capable people in the area that you are actually transacting in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like something I learned from my mentor, because he was also living in Hawaii, or he is living in Hawaii still, and he was investing in different types of properties across the United States. And then recently, I've already sold one properties in Hawaii, and just kind of begun to live more like 3/4 of my time in Mexico, and then just going to LA. And so just really kind of slowing down a little bit on that front, because I get to live in like this penthouse apartment. It's like $2,500 a month, and it's like 2,000 square feet in one of the best
Yeah.
in one of the best areas of all of the city. And then I have two assistants that cost me almost half of what one assistant would cost me
Mm-hmm.
in LA. And so it's just kind of really one of those things where, like, okay, I'm scaling down, but I'm also making changes based on what makes me happiest, and also what's
Right.
kind of the most makes the most financial sense too.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do you envision your retirement? Like, what is your ultimate goal in investing that would make you feel like you've achieved everything you set out to accomplish?
Oh, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
One of my mentors once told me that he takes 2 months off at the end of every year and travels the world with his family. He sold his company and he's worth about 10 million bucks. And so he's not the richest guy in the world, but 10 million bucks is enough to not ever have to work again. And he said he took a couple years off, and then he just noticed that he was bored out of his mind. He wasn't like really that happy. He didn't feel like he was contributing much to the world. And so he's like, yeah, I just take the last 2 months of the year. Sometimes if I want three, sometimes it's only one. And then I just travel the world with my family and, just do whatever I want. And I kind of like that model. I haven't tried it yet, because
Yeah.
in many ways I've already kind of built like kind of like a dream lifestyle. And so I like what I do. I'm actually, because you asked the question about the virtual assistants, and
Yeah.
so right now I'm in the process, and we're going to launch it next week. I'm in the process of building a virtual assistant company, because a lot of people have asked me about it, and I've seen the like how much people make here in Mexico and the opportunities they have. And so I really feel like I understand both sides. It's the entrepreneur side that needs the help and wants to keep expenses low, and
Yeah.
a dream virtual assistant at a great rate is perfect for them, especially small to medium businesses. And I've had them in different roles in my company, so I know they're capable of
Yeah.
having different roles, and also growing in those roles and being promoted and all that. And then I really want to help more Mexicans here in Mexico get good jobs that can help them pay more than a dead end job in LA is much different than a dead end
Yeah.
job in Mexico. Let's just put it that way. It's like you could have a dead end job in LA, but still kind of make ends meet and still live okay. But you can't do that in Mexico. Like it's just you're literally barely even able to make enough money to feed yourself, let alone feed a
Right.
family. So I'm building that company too, not necessarily to make money, because it's not going to be super crazy lucrative. Although I'm going to pour my heart and soul into it, but we're launching it next week, and it's going to be called My Virtual Rock Stars, and we're going to help Mexicans get good paying jobs, and we're going to help entrepreneurs in the states like get really hardworking assistants as well.
That's amazing. Thank you for letting me know that, because you're giving people opportunities and you're giving Latinos opportunities. So that's really, really cool. I love that. And that's very inspiring. I always hear about virtual assistants, mostly from the Philippines. Not much from, I don't think I've heard about Latin American countries, virtual assistants. So it's a really cool business plan.
Yeah,
And
they're cheaper in the Philippines, but they're also I've not had the best experience personally. I'm
yeah.
not but and also the cultural differences and the time
Yeah.
kind of gets in the way. But I think in the Philippines you're looking at like $3 to $5 an hour. In Mexico you're looking closer to like $5 to $8 an hour.
Yeah.
But it's worth for me.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they just especially if you're dealing with businesses like in LA and things like that where bilingual could help.
Right.
And for me, like I was paying assistants in LA $20 to $25 an hour. Like now I'm just
Yeah.
like this person is like overpaid and I can't believe I'm paying them this much. They're not even that helping me that much. And then I
Yeah.
have three assistants in Mexico for the price of one in LA, and it's like it's way better return I've noticed in business.
Yeah. And we know how Latinos work, very, very hard workers. So that's unbelievable. That's awesome that you're giving that opportunities to people in Mexico. That's great. Well, I think you've allowed me to ask you as much as I could. So thank you so much for your time. It was truly inspirational, and I'm so grateful that I got to learn more about you and what you do. And what's next? I know you're creating this amazing company, and you said next week is like
Yeah,
you're launching.
yeah, we're launching this week. So I think that's one big project that I'm working on that I'm excited about. Love to talk about
Awesome.
it. You'll see everything that we're doing about it once we launch it. So I'd say for the next 3 to 6 months, that will definitely have some of my time and bandwidth. And then just focusing on what we do best in LA, our single family fix and flip and wholesale deals there. And then just kind of coming back to a point where we're much more profitable than we have in the last couple of years. I think that way I can use all those learning lessons that I've had the last couple of years plus the years previous. And then, kind of like everybody loves a comeback story. And that's kind of feel like where we're at right now. So it's just coming back and then also doing this
Yeah.
virtual company that can provide a lot of opportunities and help to some entrepreneurs and some jobs to some people here that really want it and deserve it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate your time.